Dennis, please help me understand what the hell is feminism, man.
Well, man, Faisal, that's an interesting question. And before we started, like, kind of, when we decided we were going to do this topic, I got to like, I thought, well, I actually go look at the definition, and I looked up the, because I wanted to kind of get a real like what how it's truly defined, because I think for me when I hear that word, when I hear the word feminism, I automatically think of protesting. I mean, I think of protesting, and from a American perspective, I think like back to when I was a kid, and my parents turning on the television and seeing like ladies like swinging their bras around their heads and burning them and that sort of thing. So I think that to me, ultimately, what feminism means is it really is a desire or a movement towards equality, which in a lot of ways I support. I think I am one that I do not believe men and women were created equally. I believe that we were created different. We each have different roles. However, that has nothing to do with equality. We were not created to do the same things. So feminism, the thing I like about this topic is, man, it sure it strikes a chord with a lot of people as soon as they hear the word.
Yeah, but what you just explained sounds like Mardi Gras to me.
What part of Mardi Gras? What are you referring to?
Swinging the bras and burning them.
Yeah, but I mean, nobody's throwing beads at them, so I think it's a little different there. For me, feminism really just is more about when I have talked to women, and I listen. I'm just going to come out and say, I think it's probably ironic that two males are sitting here discussing feminism. However, like in my world and in my experience, as far as equal pay, that's not been my experience. As far as hearing about a pay gap between the genders, that's not been my experience. I worked for government, and so everybody, like if you were a step two, you got paid step two, regardless of gender.
Thank you. Exactly. But that's in government. You get paid for your grade. That's fine. But in private business, you will be paid for what you're worth. I mean, I'm an employer. I don't give a damn what your gender is as long as you're delivering.
And there it is.
I don't care how you use the loo. All I care about is what you deliver to my business. If you're making money, that's it. So I have to date failed to understand what feminism is, except that I think it has been used by a lot of women as a business, as an agenda, as a voice for their own frustration. Forgive me if I step on tender toes here, but really the fact is, the women who are actually feminists or supposedly standing for the rights of the women are really doing great harm to the rights or the cause of the women. And I think they're creating more hatred and more enmity. And the moment, as an employer, I'm so sorry, I'm sitting in Pakistan, I can get away with this crap. If I sense that you are going to be feminist, I immediately label you as a management problem.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, but you know what? You've just undermined your own career path.
I completely agree, and I'll tell you coming from I was in public safety and worked for the government. However, for the last 15 years of my career, my primary objective or role was in human resources. And so when I here in the U.S. we have a little bit our labor laws. They're very. The only time labor laws really seem to get enacted or we really look at equality or pay or anything is when lawsuits are filed. And so I think in some ways you're totally correct, FQ, in that it hurts. It really kind of hurts the movement. It really kind of hurts the movement in that. Well, I'll just tell you from my perspective, like exactly what you said. If somebody can provide me a service, I don't care what their gender is, I don't care what their race is, I don't care what their religion is, I don't even care really where they're located in the world. It's about being able to take and provide that service. And what I have found is, I just actually saw something where it was a bunch of it was several female celebrities, and what they were celebrities. These are Hollywood people, and what they were saying is how much that they actually they always get paid because they're women. They get paid less simply because of their gender. Look, I don't know whether that's true or not. I'm not going to debate that. What I am going to say is that maybe perhaps it's not just based on the gender. Maybe it's just that this person that you're starring with is better than you. Maybe they have a better reputation. Maybe they're more marketable. I mean, there's so many things that I think factor into that, besides just the fact that, people are discriminatory because of gender. And I do know that exists. So I do want to come out and say, I know that it does exist, but I think it's also contextual as well. And if you're constantly looking for problems, if you're constantly looking to be disenfranchised, guess what? You probably are going to find it.
Okay, like you said, there are places where there is bias, but that's
Sure.
a bias. I understand. They're just bad people, like we talked about earlier. Trying to understand why people do certain kind of thing. That's just a crime. That's just a bad person. Why
Right.
would you have a bias against any gender? If you're a private business, you're out there to make bucks, man. It's about dollars and cents.
Sure.
If you're a private business, why did you come into business? If you came into business to practice your biases, you're an idiot. If you're in a business to make money, whoever makes you money makes you money. That's that's the bottom line,
Yeah.
right? So here's the thing, and you said a lot of people don't hurt the movement. No, the movement doesn't get hurt. The actual cause of the women gets hurt, and they create more hatred than anything else. Okay, I'm going to take a couple of comments which are interesting. Ambreen has said, feminism is all about supporting other women, not to be equal to men. I think that was a mistype, and I think you probably meant to be equal to men. But the thing is, I'm so sorry. God, I hope this video does not come back to bite me on the dark side. But I'm sorry, women are not equal to men. Women are women, men are men. And when I say women are not equal to men, but I can change it grammatically for the same meaning. Men are not equal to women. A
Correct.
does not equal B. B does not equal A. I don't want to be equal to a woman. And I don't think a woman wants to be equal to me. I've got my own challenges. You've got your challenges. You know what? So why do you want to be equal to a dog is not equal to a cat? Why would a dog want to be equal to a cat? A dog does what a dog does and a cat does what a cat does. So Dennis, you're right. They all have their own roles. So I think Ambreen wanted to say to be equal to men. I don't think so. Okay, feminine does strike a chord with many people in the wrong way. You'll have to elaborate. Try to put your comments in one comment so we can show it at once. Equality starts at home. Equality and opportunity, no. In most tier 2, tier 3 cities in Pakistan, women still face many obstacles and challenges. I don't know, man. I don't even know what tier 2, tier 3 is. Okay, this is having an internal comment. Okay, let's take advanced comment here. Women in Pakistan doing harm to the country. Thank you. Yes. They don't want to be made to stand in queue like men, for example, but want to be treated equal. Thank you. When called out, they respond that not having to wait in line is courtesy they deserve. Thank you very much. Yeah. Dennis, I don't know if you'd relate to this or not, but in our part of the world, women still want their privilege. Women still want the door open for them. Women still don't want to, get in a queue. They want their own separate queue. Women don't want to do a lot of things which men have to do, yet they want to be equal. I don't understand how they want to be equal.
Well, but I mean but that's not talking equality, FQ. I mean that's talking special treatment, and that's where I think it crosses the line. And anytime it really just becomes a special interest. And so as far as equality goes, I'm all for it. I am all for equality. I am just simply saying, and it's interesting you talk about the opening of a door. Listen, I open doors for men. I open doors for ladies. It really, I just open doors for people. And the interesting thing is how many, every single time, and I'm just telling you, like, I'm giving, these are sweeping generalizations here. However, but in my experience, when I open a door for a man, I typically get...
Wait. Don't even complete. Let me complete for you. Let me prove how true it is without knowing what you're going to say. I can complete it for you.
Okay.
Men will say thank you, women won't.
In many cases. Yeah.
Yeah, they think it's their right.
Yeah, and I open the door, and they're just like, oh, and it's not even like, oh, here, let me open the door for you. It's more of like I'm opening the door, and then they just walk through. And listen, I like holding the door for people. I think it's just part of living. It's part of being a civility. It's something nice to do. It's a way to kind of take care of somebody else. Just a nice gesture. And I'm not expecting a thank you. But typically the men will say, you're correct. The men will say thank you. And I would say probably 10% of the women end up saying thank you. I'm not trying to make I know generalizations aren't always the most healthy thing. I think that what we're talking about is the difference between equality versus special rights. And when you want special rights or special treatment, that's always going to take and rub people the wrong way. It just is.
So here's the twist as far as I'm concerned. It is men who are oppressed in this society. It is men who need special care. It is men who take the real brunt of the responsibility. It is men who have to suffer the most. It is men who carry the bigger burden, yet men don't have rights. Sure, men may favor men, but that's not because I like men. It's because they deliver more. If you're talking about, Hollywood, I'm sorry, Tom Cruise brings in more box office dollar than probably Jessica Alba or whoever else. I'm just taking a name for the sake of taking a name. I'm not being personal here. Marlon Brando, Al Pacino. I mean, come on, they bring in more box office dollar. Put a name on a film board, and you write Tom Cruise, Marlon Brando, Robert De Niro, or whoever else, or you put Jessica Alba, Jodie Foster, whoever else. You know what? They bring the top dollar.
Yes.
So they're going to make the top dollar, yeah?
Absolutely, and I think really kind of where my mind goes when you say that men are, men are the ones that are treated unequally. I think that there's been kind of a movement, and I'll speak to here in the U.S. And if I can just share my screen here for a moment, because there's actually where is it?
What you looking for, man?
Toxic masculinity, and this is a term that has come about, and it's just something that it's really interesting. It seems to be that this term kind of came about when I started hearing it. I don't know when the origins of the term came about, but it seems that I heard more about toxic masculinity when I started hearing about the hashtag Me Too movement, and then also that there's this whole idea that men promote rape culture. Listen, I'm just going to tell you.
What?
This whole thing of rape culture, and listen, I don't know whether that exists. I don't even know that I completely understand that term. What I know is that I don't know of any man, no man that I know that I associate with, talks about grabbing women by the pee. That they certainly don't talk like President Trump does.
Except for a president, yeah, of course.
Well, he does, but I don't know anybody else like him. In my life, I don't know anybody else like that talks that way. I don't know anybody that's actually assaulted a woman. I don't know anybody that hits women. I don't know anybody that rapes. I don't. Those people are not in my life. So it's a difficult concept. I am not saying that doesn't happen, but I think that what we've kind of seen, at least here in the United States, is that if you're a male and you want to run for political office, you have to. You are guilty of rape. You're guilty of sexual assault before you're even charged with anything. So you're automatically having to defend something or prove that you didn't do something because it's more than likely going to get said. So I think when I think what really hurts the women's equality movement, listen, and I'm just going to go and say I think hashtag Me Too had a place. I do. I think that people like Harvey Weinstein, they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. It's gross. However, not everybody does that. And just because somebody doesn't like something that's said doesn't mean that they're necessarily being sexually harassed or there's a hostile work environment being created. So I just think we've gotten a little hyperbolic with some of these terms.
Okay, I'm all for Me Too, but Me Too without any gender. Me Too should go both ways. And you know what? Sure, men, bosses may sexually harass women. Women bosses also harass men. Just because they don't make sexual advances at them does not mean they're not harassing men. Harassment should be talked about. Why, if a man makes a pass at a woman who's working for him, I'm not justifying, that's horrible. Absolutely gross. A man should not do that. But women treat men like they're crap. Women bosses treat men under them very poorly. Also because, let me add here, a male boss, by societal norms and pressure, has to behave a certain way with a female employee, or he'd be labeled a misogynist or whatever, not lovely words for it. But a woman can treat a man working for her really poorly, talk to him poorly in the name of, otherwise he would sexually harass me. And she can just go on and misbehave with men working for her and completely get away with it. No societal norm, no peer pressure, nothing would tell her that, hey, lady, you're talking to him, be nice to him. But if a man was to talk poorly to a woman, he'd immediately be told by his peers, hey, dude, be nice to her, man, she's a woman. No woman would be told, be nice to him, he's a man. Why? Why is that?
And I'll just say my experience is a little bit different. And so I have actually, I've had female bosses, and I got treated very well. There really was no issue other than I just went to work and my boss just happened to be a female. It wasn't, I didn't view them like as a sexual object. I mean, I was at work. So I think in some ways what we're trying to do is, I do think that men, let me rephrase. I think that people in power, I think that there is a tendency to perhaps abuse power, and I think that crosses gender lines. In my experience, FQ, so I was actually hired by a corporation. Corporation hired me, and really what they wanted me to do was to work with one executive, and this was the CEO. And in the CEO, they had just brought in a female to be a CEO, and so I worked with this female, very smart, very intelligent, like in so many ways has stronger work ethic than me, and I mean really just a kick-ass professional person. So, well, when in my conversations with her, it was that she's like, oh, well, I have to act this way. I'm like, you're really aggressive. Does everything require such an aggressive response? She goes, well, you wouldn't be saying that if I'm a man. I said, listen, this has nothing to do with gender. This just has to do with you being an asshole. Like, at the end of the day, you don't have to take and treat people this way to get respect, or, I mean, that's your bias that you're bringing into the situation. So and just to kind of, I think just to disagree with you just a little bit, in my experience, FQ, I haven't had a problem with the female bosses. What I've seen is that they treat other females terribly. Oh, that's typically what I've seen. Is not so much that there's, that I was mistreated, but if I had a female counterpart, there were times I'd be like, eesh, I don't know what's going on here. But yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, women go psycho with other women. Women are totally psycho with other women.
Very territorial.
I fully agree with that. I fully agree. But I wasn't saying that women bosses are bad to male employees. All I'm saying is if a male boss is rude to a woman employee, peer pressure would say, behave well because she's a woman. Women will say, hey, behave. Oh man, misogyny and male chauvinism and feminism. But if a female boss, a lady boss, a woman is going to misbehave or treat a man working for her poorly, there will be no peer pressure. She can get away with it. A man cannot get away with it, typically speaking, generally, and I'm also speaking about, all over the world, globally. Women can get away with it. Women can get away being, okay, let me put it this way. Women can get away with a bitchy attitude, but men cannot.
In many cases.
A rude man will get more reprimand than a rude woman.
Because I think when men are rude to each other, and it is still rude, I think we just kind of look at it like, oh, whatever, dude. Like,
exactly.
Go F yourself or whatever. I don't think that there's such the personal connection. And I will just say, as somebody, and I've wondered whether or not to talk about this. As somebody that has actually been accused of creating a hostile work environment, and I was investigated for this. I'm going to tell you, like, at the end of the day, it was found it was a grueling process. I was investigated. My whole life was turned upside down. I was threatened with lawsuits. And at the end of the day, you know what? The investigator came out and said, there's not enough evidence to support this claim. Not enough evidence to support this claim at all. And what happened to the accuser? I got told no retaliation. That's what I was told.
Yeah.
No retaliation. I'm like, okay, but what's going to happen? Is there any policy violation? What about this? They're like, no, that's not really worth pursuing. So it becomes kind of low-hanging fruit to take and just accuse somebody of misconduct. And in the wake of it, I've worked with several males, and again, I'm not trying to defend people that have bad behavior. That's bad behavior. That imbalance of power, male bosses, female bosses, you should not be like having intimate relationships with your coworkers. You're in a position of power. Therefore, anything you do is automatically considered to be coercive. It just is by the very definition of your position. So I think where some of this starts, and somebody made a comment about this, is I think where some of this kind of comes from, where I look at it, is gender roles. So even outside of the workplace, I look at gender roles, and I'll just tell you, I think I did a pretty good job with raising two sons, and I think I did a pretty good job in raising my two sons because my youngest. He's in a relationship right now, and he cooks, he cleans. He's an equal part of the household, and I think that's really, to me, that's what equality is about. We are created differently, but that doesn't mean I can't clean up after myself.
Yeah, but that's just common decency.
Yeah, but it gets lumped in. It gets lumped into this whole thing. That's where this toxic masculinity concept comes from. And again, and rape culture.
Even in our part of the world, the whole Me Too was basically boiled down to, no, I will not warm you your food, and you can cook your own food and shit like that. I mean, you know what? Fine, so I won't buy you food. I won't bring in groceries. But that's stupidity on both sides.
Absolutely.
That's if I have downtime and my wife or my sister or my mother are doing X, Y, Z, well, I'm doing nothing, I'll help you. But if I'm doing my stuff and you're doing your stuff, that's all right, we're both doing our stuff. So when you have time, please help me with my stuff if you can.
Yeah.
And if I have time, I'll help you with your stuff when I can. But that doesn't mean that we be taking either one for granted. I mean, there's stuff I do which my wife cannot do, which is fine. There's stuff she does which I cannot do. Does not mean we're not helping each other, but wherever we can help each other, so we help each other. Okay, I'm going to take this one on, man. Rafia, of all you people, because I think men would, why? What? Men are some sexually starved, desperate animals? Or even animals don't do that. What? Just what do you mean? I'm taking it lightheartedly, so I'm kidding. But you know why? Yeah, it's assumed that if a woman makes a pass at a man would go, yeah, please, why? It's like men don't have standards? What?
Well, I think what she's talking about is that it just in many cases, like if a woman says something that if they say something insulting, that a man, I think what she's referring to, and I could be wrong here, but it's almost that there's programming that a man can't say anything back. I want to take this one on FQ. When we get down here to this one. Like ours, how exactly are men oppressed? I don't think we're talking about anybody being oppressed. Here, 1 in 3 women is subjected to domestic abuse. That's a crime. So, I'm just going to say, that's a crime. I don't think that, I don't think women should be hit. I don't think that they should be abused. But I also don't know that that's really part of a patriarchal society. Because I would consider the U.S. to be a patriarchal society as well. And kind of, without getting into the political side of this, I will just say I know several women here in the United States. And listen, this is a very small handful. It's not like I have a huge social circle. It's just simply that I can tell you there were a number of women that I know personally, they would not vote for Hillary Clinton because that's a man's job. So that's that. It had nothing to do with politics. It had to do with belief systems that's a man's job. Listen, and I'm just going to say, I know, my wife, and I think she's a really good example of this. She's a strong, independent woman, but she wanted to stay home and raise children. She wanted to be a housewife. She had options. And I understand in other parts of the world, there's more expectations on that, and maybe the females don't have the opportunities like they do here in the U.S., but it's still a choice. It's still a choice, and I think it's important to take. My wife got some criticism for that. Oh, and it was usually directed like, "Oh, your husband, he wants you barefoot and pregnant." No, no, I really didn't, and I don't care whether she is barefoot. I really didn't want her pregnant because that meant I had to like pay for more kids. So no, that was not the case. She stayed home with the children. We made a choice. She wanted to do that. And then once the kids got older, I mean, now she's a working professional, and she's really kick ass at her job. So I think we just try to pigeonhole people and keep them into a certain keep them in a certain lane, where equality is about, if I don't like doing this today, I can go do that tomorrow. Since I started working from home about 4 years ago full time, 90% of the household duties I take care of. And it's not out of obligation. It's simply because by the time the weekend rolls around, I want to be able to hang out with April so we can like hang out and have fun. Not worry about the work and the cleaning of the house and the household chores. It's easier for me to have dinner waiting for her when she comes home. Because then it's efficient. It has nothing to do with gender, it's efficiency.
Like I said earlier, I mean, whoever's got the time and the capability, you push through. Like right now, in this quarantine, for 3 months we've been locked in, we have no staff. It's just me and Bina. And you know what? We're cooking, cleaning, washing, doing everything ourselves. Not complaining. We're loving, we're having fun. But you know what? We both try to finish it before sunset. So at the end of the day, I'm doing this broadcast with you. She's doing her final things, chatting her mom or whoever. And then when I'm done, we're going to sit and watch TV. We don't want stuff left to be done late. So we just together wind things up. Okay, before we move on, I need to do a rant on this, mate.
Okay. Get it.
This is my favorite rant. Tashika Bukhari. Ms. Bukhari, number one, we are not a patriarchal society. We are a very matriarchal society. Women try to make it sound like a patriarchal society. Men are not in charge. Men are used by women to be the mouthpiece. Women manipulate the men in our culture. I'm speaking completely in our Pakistani or India, Pakistan, Bangladesh society. I'm even throwing Chinese and Taiwanese. They're like us. Women use the men to become their mouthpiece and execute on their behalf. It's a matriarchal society. Not obviously. Women are pulling the strings. Number one. Number two, domestic abuse. That's just a crime. It has nothing to do with gender or feminism or anything. Any man who hits a woman should be thrown away. As far as I'm concerned, the society should completely take this human being out of the system. Any person who beats another person, a spouse beating a spouse, a man beating a woman beating a man, unacceptable. It is ridiculous that in Pakistan we've got laws talking about if a man hits a woman, she can complain and he'll go to jail. Why doesn't the law say that if either a husband hits a woman or his wife or a wife hits a husband, there is no such law protecting a husband? That is stupid. Why is the law made for women protection? Why is not a people protections right? So you completely throw men in front of this madness. So women now use it. Hey, he hit me. He goes to jail. Why can't a man go and complain that woman's hit me? Number two. Number three, men have the birth given responsibility in our society to pay, to earn, to take care of everyone from the day they're born. Women keep saying that male children are fed better than female children, not because they love their male children more, but because they're rearing them as beasts of labor. They're investing in men because they want to basically live off of them and make sure getting his sisters married, his responsibility. Taking care of the wife, his responsibility. Taking care of the parents, his responsibility. And you know what? It's women. I'm sorry, but it's the mother-in-law. I don't know any father-in-law who makes trouble for his daughter-in-law. It's the mother-in-laws who create disasters for the daughter-in-laws. So it's again a woman against a woman. Please leave men out of that madness. And lastly, you talk about finding support. Yes, if God forbid in our culture, in our society, if a woman is widowed or divorced, You know what? Men don't have a problem with such a woman. It is other women who have a problem with a widowed or divorced woman, because you know what? Suddenly a woman, a married woman, a wife, sees a widowed or divorced woman as a threat to her marriage. Men have no issue. Men would accept a divorced or a widowed or even a single woman. Men don't have a problem with that. It's other women who ostracize them. It's other women who put them in pigeonhole. It's other women who work against such women. Men don't. Yes, if there are rapists in your environment, if there are men in your environment who beat women, they're just bad people. Please don't label that or put that on men in general. Thank you very much. So Dennis, where were we, mate?
Yeah, well, you know what? I appreciate what you said. Is to understand, to look at this, is that this is people. This is people. Look, bad behavior is bad behavior. I just yes. I've been doing recently. I've had because of COVID. I had not been doing therapy for a while, and now because of COVID, I'm actually back to providing employee assistance counseling now. And so in that, some of the things that employees come to work with is baggage from their relationship. And I'm just going to say, like, and I'll say, as a professional counselor here in the States, when I was doing that full time, I worked for an agency, and I was assigned specifically to work with female domestic violence offenders. And what I can tell you from that experience is that if the women that I worked with, like literally, many of them had stabbed or really beaten a male very badly, but those convictions, they were still convicted. But it was at a much lower level of a crime. It was more of a misdemeanor, where if a guy were to have done the same thing, it is looked at as it's considered a felony. So that the men that were actually in my group, the women, they had stabbed people, they had like brandished a gun, those types of things. Where the men, they like punched a hole in the wall, they threw a cell phone, and then that's what's low level. So look, I just want to say, like, as humans, like we have consciousness and we have cognitive abilities. Like, if hitting or being violent, that's an internal problem that has truly nothing to do with anybody else. Nothing at all. So, I think that in some ways, what I would like to see is, instead of talking so much about gender, I would more like to see we talk about people, and we have different roles. We have different roles in society. There was a comment up here. And one of the things I was going to say, so Umar, thank you. Professional behavior doesn't look at gender. Equality, meritocracy is above feminism. And I would agree. And I'm going to just come out and say this. Here in the U.S., when as an HR professional, when I put a job posting out, this is what the qualifications are. You have to have like a degree, maybe some certifications, and then that's it for everybody. When I was doing some HR consulting in some countries in Egypt and across the Middle East, the difference is that we would straight up put it out. It would be right in the job posting, that it was it was for a female. She must cover. She must be between this age and this age. And I asked them, I told them, I looked at the job post. I'm like, oh, we can't do this. They said, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, this is not equal. They said, this isn't the United States. So I'm like, well, wait a second. So I started exploring that. I said, tell me the reason that you guys do this. They said, because it just works easier. It's just easier. It's what our society wants. And I said, so what's the ultimate benefit? They said, we don't have all the sexual harassment complaints, simply because we put the right person in there for our societal needs. And I think that's really I think that's important to consider.
Well, talk about complaints and what you talked about earlier, Dennis. Here's the comment. Exactly what you talked about. Well, hardly any woman goes to jail for falsely accusing a man for rape. Like Dennis just said, he was told to not pursue. Right. A man gets life destroyed because he's falsely accused. Yeah.
Right, and I'm just going to say, like, those things, those affect entire families. Those accusations and stuff affect entire families. And, so I just want to say, like, to somebody that thinks that that's okay, regardless of male or female, if you think it's okay to lodge accusations at other people, remember that those people have families. They have other people that are depending on them, and you wouldn't want to have to take and defend yourself. I listen, FQ, it was the most difficult. It was truly just a very difficult situation. How do you defend yourself from something you didn't do?
Yeah, well.
I mean, because now anything you do, it just looks like you're justifying your behavior. So this is a really good conversation. I think that it's timely. I think it's important. And
while we're at it, before you go, I've been a victim of domestic abuse, domestic violence. How's that?
Well, I think people would question your use of the word victim. But I've been on the receiving end of that as well, and I've
been beaten up, man.
Sure, absolutely. I'm just gonna say I don't think anybody should be beating on anybody else. Like that is just such a lack of intelligence and such a like really this is where we're going to. You're that much of a slave to your emotions.
And the person in question justified by saying you did this, thus. I said, you know what? Doesn't matter what I did. You can't touch me.
Right.
And what I did is debatable.
Sure.
That's a subjective discussion. But objectively, if a man were to hit a woman, you can't justify it. Nothing on earth can justify a man hitting a woman. Yet a woman hitting a man becomes subjective suddenly, and you have to see, oh, you must have done something. Excuse me?
Right.
Well, then woman would have done something too. But what I'm saying is, what we're both saying is, either way, no, that's a no-no. That's a complete no-no. And if you're around people who do that, please remove them from your life. Punish them for their bad behavior. You do not want to encourage such behavior. Well, that's about that, Dennis. Closing comments, sir.
Yeah, in closing, I just want to say, I think that, kind of getting back to the basics is just that, let's just all focus on treating each other, right? Take the gender part out of it, and let's just focus on treating each other with kindness, respect, and civility. And when that happens, then we truly have equality. Otherwise, it's going to get looked at as a special interest, and nobody really likes that. So, what I want to say is just kind of plug back to the basics show real quick. We will be going on tonight at 6 a.m. Pakistan time, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time here in the United States. Tonight we will be discussing how to take and overcome procrastination. So last night was a really good discussion on 5 ways to eliminate excuses from our life. Tonight we're actually going to be talking about one of the reasons that we make excuses is because of procrastination. So we procrastinate, we put ourselves in a situation we don't get stuff done, and then we end up like making excuses. So we're going to be going over procrastination tonight.
Also,
please join me.
As of yesterday, we've started making parallel recordings of these live shows because we understand these live shows a lot of times don't have the right quality on the flow. So we're taking excerpts of these shows, and as much as possible, because it takes a lot of editing and fixing up, we are releasing them as individual videos as well. I released the first one just a short while ago on this very same Facebook and my YouTube, and Dennis will also hopefully release them from his page on YouTube.
Absolutely.
So please watch them, share them, pass them around, and you gotta click like under the somewhere here. You gotta click like, because when you click like, only then Facebook and YouTube see that as engagement and propagate the videos more.
And you get notified. So the more that you like something, the more you're going to get notified of content that's coming out.
So thank you very much for being with us tonight again, and until tomorrow. Cheers. Reminder, tomorrow's Friday, we take your video calls and open topic Q&A. So send us your questions, and we'll take care of them tomorrow. All right, man. Good night.
Take care. Bye.